Welcome back to Leo's Nerd Talk. Trying out a little new setup here today, so see how this kind of paints out to be. And speaking of painting out to be, today we're reviewing Paint, a movie that came out a little bit earlier this year, back in April, that seemingly no one really talked about. I was actually really excited about this movie when it first was announced back in April. It's a movie that's directed and written by Britt McAdams. Stars Owen Wilson portraying a character named Kara Nargle, which is loosely based off of the real life American artist Bob Ross. And before we get started on this review, just want to make sure that everybody goes ahead and gives me their feedback down below. Let me know what you think about this movie. If you have seen it already, make sure to like and subscribe. And let's get into the review. Story is based off of Kara Nargle, loosely based off of the famous artist Bob Ross. And the whole premise of the movie is basically Kara Nargle is an artist on a television show called Paint with Kara Nargle. And it's going over the progression of his life, where he's been doing these same paintings over and over again for the last 22 years because he is obsessed with trying to get into the Burlington Museum of Art. And in the movie, a new artist is hired into the television show named Abrisha, and she is a more modern artist that a lot of people seem to like, and Kara Nargle's character starts to be kind of get thrown into the back burner and isn't as popular as he used to be. And the story kind of goes through that same progression over and over again. You see Kara Nargle's character Paint, and then right after they throw in Abrisha to kind of get up the ratings on this television show called Paint. And again, Kara Nargle just keeps getting thrown back and back and back, and he's not having the fame like he used to, and it's kind of turning his life upside down because he's not used to that, and he's used to everybody kind of catering to him, doing everything he wants. After he always finishes a painting, they always come and give him a coffee, put on his jacket, so and so. So it's kind of funny to see. But again, it's a really interesting story, and I'm really surprised that no one really talked about it as much when it first kind of came out. It kind of did slip under the radar. I'm really into these type of movies where it kind of shows someone's life or a creation of something, like stuff like Air or Oppenheimer, like we got recently, or something like The Founder, the McDonald's movie. This kind of follows that same premise, but it's not exactly off of Bob Ross's life. It's of course this kind of fictional character, Kara Nargle, that's very loosely based off of him. Now on to the pros for me. I think the acting was actually pretty great here. Owen Wilson did a pretty fantastic job as Kara Nargle and portraying kind of this Bob Ross type of character. It still kind of has that same personality as Bob Ross, and he does a really good job. There's still some emotions in there. He's a very monotone type of person, makes it seem that nothing really kind of offends him or hurts him. No matter what people say about him, he's okay. But then you also look at the backside of him, and you see his inner thoughts, and he's actually worried about losing his fame, because if he loses his fame, then he'll never get the chance to get into the Burlington Museum of Art. And the whole premise is he's trying to paint these mountains of Vermont because the owner of the Burlington Museum of Art is trying to put a art piece of the Vermont mountains, and he's constantly painting this, hoping to see that one day he's gonna call him up and say, hey, I want your art in my museum. And that's kind of the whole story, and you kind of get that repetitiveness, which is okay. And it's a pretty short movie, which is good. I think if this was a very long runtime, it could have been burnt out pretty quickly, but it still was a really good watch, and it kind of gave me some good laughs here and there. The comedy was actually pretty smart. It got me to chuckle here and there. But overall, I think the acting, the comedy, that was all pretty well done. Another positive for me is it's a pretty interesting story. Again, it's kind of has a repetitiveness in terms of, Kara Nargle's painting on the show. They put on this new person, Abrisha. She outpaints him. He gets less famous. She gets more famous. But towards the end, towards the third act, there's a lot of things that happen that kind of throw you for a loop. The whole time I was waiting, okay, what's the plot twist? What's the plot twist? And I thought it was gonna be just some sort of kind of boring plot twist, or not even plot twist at all. It was just gonna kind of end. But it actually hits you with a pretty good plot twist, and I thought that was actually pretty well done. And it actually left me surprised. I just finished watching it right now, so it was actually a pretty good surprise. And I thought the story was done really, really well there. Now on to the cons for me. Not too many cons actually. Again, this movie doesn't have a huge plot. until the last end where I thought it actually did something really well. But there were some instances where it was a little cringy, and and you're just sitting there, you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to continue watching this, but at the end of the day, I'm trying I'm trying to watch this whole movie because I was actually excited about this movie back earlier April this year. So being able to see it was actually really well. But again, there was some cringy parts of the movie that were kind of hard to watch, but once you get past that, it does a pretty well job of portraying this character, and overall it's a pretty good movie. Now, spoiler alert warning, if you haven't seen this movie, I highly suggest it. I'm pretty sure not that many people have seen it because it has really low numbers from the box office, really low numbers overall when you look at IMDb and stuff. So I think it's definitely a movie that people need to watch for sure. But again, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. Spoiler warning again. The ending. I thought the ending was actually really well done. So basically what happens towards the end is Bob Ross ends up smoking some marijuana. He gets really high and his barn catches on fire, where all of his artwork that he thought was going to be able to go into this museum gets burnt. Before this happens, he gets a haircut and he takes his excess hair home, and that is all that is left in this burnt barn where all his artwork was. So when the police and the fire department show up, they think that Carl Nargin is dead, which he isn't. And now that everybody thinks he's dead, his artwork is extremely valuable, and the person that didn't want to have his art in the Burlington Museum is now fighting for it, is able to, and wanting to pay any amount of money to get that art. Now that's one twist that's not really a twist in itself, but the thing that I thought was really cool towards the end, pretty much the last scene, if you're really familiar with art, you will probably know this artist. He's a famous graffiti artist and no one knows his identity. At least not that I recently have searched up. I don't think anybody still knows his identity, but it's his name is Banksy, and he's a graffiti artist. And at the end, they show his portrait, a canvas of Carl Nargo painting, and he asks his wife in the movie, what does she think about the art? And she says, well, I think you should make the balloon red instead of blue, and the silhouette a girl instead of a little boy. And then when the camera flips over, you see kind of that iconic Banksy art, and I'll put a picture up on here, so if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll go ahead and put a little artwork on there so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So I thought that was actually a really good twist, where you're making this Bob Ross character at the end, now that he is dead to everybody in the media, has a switch up, and now he's going to be this famous unidentified graffiti artist. I thought that was actually a really cool twist. So again, really awesome movie. I thought it was done really well. So if you haven't checked it out, I definitely recommend checking it out. Again, this is another review from Leo's Nerd Talk. I would definitely give this movie a watch, and I would give it probably like an 8 out of 10. I thought that was a really enjoyable movie for me. It's definitely not a miss in my books. You should definitely take a look at it. So again, thank you again. Remember to put your comments down below. Let me know what you thought about this movie. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next review. Thank you.